This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 601 with Gavin Campbell, recorded on February 29th, Leap Day, by the way, 2024. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in a weird Bellevue, Nebraska. Gavin, I think, where did they get that from? I think they're metal. Gavin, you've had some weird weather coming in. This is whatever's going on right now. We had spring, winter, and then spring again, right? Is it same thing for you guys?
Yeah, we had a temperature swing of like almost 20 to 30 degrees, right?
Yeah.
Celsius.
Yeah.
So
Celsius.
I'm going to make everyone do the math because I don't want to do the math today. Right. But
Americans are the only one that use Fahrenheit.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
So we went from like plus 14 degrees Celsius to like -6 to -10, like within like 4 or 5 hours. And it was just insane. Like I was in a t-shirt at one point and then like gloves, hat, and everything 4 hours later.
Yeah. Monday, everybody in Omaha was like, I think it hit 80 here, and everybody was like, "Spring is here," and I'm like, "My friends, just wait 24 hours. It's Nebraska, right? You know this is not real." And sure enough, we were. I think it got down to 10 Fahrenheit, and I was telling you, I have some plants. I have some crocuses that I plant, and they're pretty hardy. Like they're winter hardy. They'll come up early. They'll survive a snow. Not 10 degrees. they were all dead today when I went out there. They were like, I was like, oh, that's kind of a bummer. Well, hopefully, and I know our friends in California right now, they have this weekend, they have a blizzard advisory up in the Sierra, and they're expecting feet of snow up there. So you guys, everybody stay safe no matter where you are. This is that time of the year. I think, I don't know what's going to cause it, but with everything that's going on, I think we may be in for an interesting spring here in the United States with all the tornado weather and those kinds of things. So anyways, everybody stay safe. We'll post a show with some world-class show notes out at theaverageguy.tv. Big thanks to Tony Rayner, who joined me 2 weeks ago. Last week I was off. I had a work event on Thursday night. I actually did 6 podcasts for work last week, which was kind of crazy. And you think, Gavin, you'd think that'd be fun. And it was, right? I mean, you get to do your hobby at work, but after 6, by Thursday night, when I got done at 9 p.m. or 9:30 on Thursday, I was ready to be done. So it's how many podcasts do you think? Have you ever recorded? What do you think your record is? You're over at hometech.fm, by the way, if folks want to head over and hear you. But have you ever done multiple podcasts in a week?
In a week, yeah. I've done multiple podcasts in a day too. I think. With you one day, I did. We did the home tech one right before, and then that morning I also did another one. So I think I did 3 that day. Yeah. But that would have been my record.
Yeah, 3. Well, 3 in a day is good. That's I try to keep it to no more than 2. We were doing like 8 a.m. 9 a.m. and 8 p.m. for 3 days. Like that's what we were doing. And I don't know if I've done more than 3. So that's a good number. It kind of, after a while, your brain kind of goes to mush. You're like, I don't know what I said anywhere.
I'm not all sure. The shows.
Yeah. No, you do, right? You kind of confuse them. Well, anyway, so big thanks to Tony Rayner for joining us 2 weeks ago, and then big thanks to our Patreon subscribers. Of course, if you support us on Patreon, big thanks for doing that. You don't have to, and you can do it for a month or multiple months, but appreciate that. If you want to join the team, you can head out to theaverageguy.tv/Patreon. Gavin Campbell is joining me today. Gavin, thanks for coming back. I appreciate it. Always good to have you.
Oh, it's great to be here. I always like when we catch up because I go through some of the stuff we've been covering for the last. How many months since I was last on here? I can't remember.
It's been 2 or 3, maybe. I think it's been a quarter since you got here.
There's a few good. So I know TJ brought you up to speed with some things, but I know. I kept a few back from him. I told him not to talk about.
It was great having TJ. It was great having TJ on. He was awesome, and I know he's out in the chat room. So TJ, thanks for joining. We'll have to get him back on here. He needs to kind of add to the rotation on what we're doing. But it was always good. What's going on at hometech.fm? What are you guys talking about over there? What's some recent topics?
All the usuals. I don't even remember. Like you, I don't even remember what we talked about anymore. But we cover all the latest gadgets that are getting released. All the latest news and matter, all the latest just industry news in general. The drama going on, things getting announced. Every week is just wild topics, and we go through. I think one of the favorite parts of the show, I think, with listeners now is when we give out some free consulting. We talk about projects we've been working on, or if people write in, they ask us how we would do that. That seems to be becoming a little bit more popular now. We get a lot more feedback about that. We got to start charging for that, though.
Yeah,
find a way to charge for that.
You do. Yeah, that's the hard part, right? I mean, it's fun when it's free.
Yeah,
right. But we've kind of created a free open culture in a lot of ways, right? Where it's kind of, if you paid for it all, I don't know if you could afford it. That'd be some of this home automation stuff. And that's what you spend a lot of time talking about.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, before we kind of dive into the topics, do you feel like home automation, if you were to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being very immature and 10 being mature, where would that land on a scale for you, as far as where do you think in the continuum we are with home automation?
I want to say we're at about a 6. Yeah. But we're making moves in the right direction. Like 10 years ago, it was much worse, and even like 3 years ago, it was much worse.
What makes it worse? What makes it worse, or what it made it worse back?
Just the protocols back then weren't as, settled, weren't as mature. They weren't as good. But now when you got things like Z-Wave 800 and Zigbee 3.0, they're a lot more solid now. They run a lot better. They get more distance, better coverage, less problems, but we're still in that compatibility issue. Things just not working together all the time yet. Everyone trying to figure out how to make their own little walled garden still, that type of thing. And why I say we're in the right direction is with Matter coming out. That, we'll get into that, but that's putting us in the right direction.
Yeah. But for folks who don't know, give a little, just a few seconds on what is Matter. Talk a little bit about that real quick.
Matter is a new protocol, so it runs over Thread. So it's more of the application layer to it. But what it is, it's basically a new standard that they're coming with that devices can utilize, similar to Z-Wave or Zigbee, where they will be able to talk to everything. So you'll have a device and you don't have to worry, does it work with this hub or that hub? No, if your hub supports Matter, it's going to work with HomeKit. It's going to work with your Amazon. It's going to work with your Google, your Home Assistant. It's going to work with all those devices. And that's where, we're going towards is once devices are on Matter, and you're utilizing Matter, we don't have these walled gardens anymore. Yeah. Right. And it's the application layer because Matter works over things such as, Thread. It will use Thread as the underlying communication protocol, right? And it will use Wi-Fi also as the underlying communication protocol. But then the Matter is kind of like at the application layer where it encodes and decodes and handles all that stuff. So it's really interesting. It started off really rocky. Like I had my doubts at first. You had all the big names working on it. You have Amazon, you have Google, you have all the big names working on it. I had my doubts. It started off really rocky, but lately it's been getting a lot better. And that has a lot to do with bug fixes coming in the chips and, coming in the operating systems and stuff like that. And they're adding features slowly and it's really good. It's getting good now.
Are the hardware vendors being more kind to it? Because I think that's sometimes what it takes, right? Is they've got to be doing some things to be friendly to that, or is there some more adoption around that with the vendors?
I think with the vendors, every vendor's talking Matter now. Like every time you see a device now, they're saying a lot of times, if it doesn't support Matter now, they're making the promise, Matter to come. And I always say, don't buy a product based on promises, right? Because you never know if it'll ever come through. But a lot of them are saying Matter will come. We're preparing it, but there are a lot of Matter devices starting to come out, And I think it's basically on everybody's mind. We pretty much have to come up with a Matter device.
Have you guys been talking about Matter on HomeTech.fm? Have you guys been spending some time? Do you have a guest? You put that in the show notes. Talk a little bit about that.
So we interviewed Daniel Monita, and he is part of the Matter working group. So he works with all the guys on the all the protocols and everything like that, and the marketing and stuff. And if you go to hometech.fm, you can look for that interview. And it was a really good interview. Like, I went into that interview with a negative look on Matter, and after that interview,
really?
Yeah, really? Like I was going into that with, I don't like this, and I was ready to drill him, and we drilled him. And then after that interview, we were like converts, and I'm not just talking me. Even TJ was, Seth was, and we were much nicer to Matter after the fact. So it's a good interview if you're like a Matter doubter to see, like, to listen to that. And it may be a few months old by now, because there's even more stuff happening with Matter even on the home assistant side, where they're introducing tools to troubleshoot, almost like they were listening to some of the stuff we were complaining about, right?
Yeah, so, well, they probably were. They probably were.
Be surprised, and who knows?
Daniel Monita, is that? Yes. Am I pronouncing Moneta? Search that. Head out to hometech.fm and make sure you listen to that episode. Do you think? I mean, it sounds like Matter's kind of the open source hub, so to speak, for home automation. Would I be categorizing that correct, or is that what you'd say, or how would you say it?
It's the open source protocol, so it's easy for people to implement. And I don't know what hub you're working with right now. Do you have a hub in your house?
Well, no. The Amazon device is probably the closest thing to a hub that I have.
Depending on which one it has, it may have thread radios, but it's also Matter compatible. And if you get like a Wi-Fi Matter device, at minimum, it should work with that, right? And it will use the Wi-Fi to communicate, but then the Matter is the protocol, so it knows how to talk to each other, and it will handle it from there. So it's the future in terms of just interoperability. I had to work on that one.
Yeah. It seems like, I feel like home automation slowed down a little bit in the last 6 months. You're shaking your head. Do you agree with that? Does it seem like it's settling in? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Or what do you think?
It's not a bad thing. I totally agree with your vision. I know there's a podcaster, she actually canceled her podcast. I think she felt the same way, that everything's just becoming, there's nothing new being done.
Yeah.
And I feel, I feel the same way. I feel like a lot of companies, when they come out, they come out with the same things that are already out here. Here's our version of a switch. Here's our version of a contact sensor, but there's nothing new they added to it. And I think we're in that point where a lot of people want to come out with all their versions of stuff that already exists now, and then they may iterate upon it. But there's a few areas where I think is good for, like, people to step in and make a change, like, just off the top of my head, toaster, like, come in, like, that's what open for home automation, and that's just a joke, but I'm saying there's a lot of things out there that are open for home automation, and even making it simpler.
Yeah. Well, and longevity it's one of those things. I was listening to Windows Weekly this week, and Paul Thurrott had mentioned a Cortana-based thermostat that had come out at one point in time. And I was like, could you imagine if you'd bought that, and how quickly Microsoft abandoned it? I mean, it was like all that Cortana stuff was abandoned. Now, if you think about the Nest or the Ecobee, or, fill in the blank, there's been a handful that have made it so far. Yeah. From a thermostat perspective, you'd been okay. I had we had our air conditioner replaced right at the end of the season last year. And I asked my HVAC guy that came in to do it. And I like this guy. He's kind of old school. I was like, hey, would you put in a Nest thermostat for me? And he goes, no. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, we don't like those. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, they're complicated. And
that's what it is.
And he said to me, I get too many callbacks on them. By the time we put them in and service them, we get so many questions that we don't make any money off of them. Now, what I read into that is that we get when you install them for the average person, like for the regular person, like for you and me, we want to monkey with it. We're going to be okay with it. We might ask a few questions, but they're not. Well, in his opinion, I don't know if I'd have this opinion, but he says they're not ready for the average consumer yet, really, to take on. I think they kind of are. He may have been a little old school from that perspective. I don't know. Any thoughts on that, Gavin?
I actually have this conversation. My neighbor's an HVAC guy. So, and when we talked about this for a while, he was anti Ecobee. He was just the old school thermostat, right? But what happened was people were actually calling him and requesting an Ecobee to be installed. So he actually had to consult me. He's like, all right, well, what's the deal with this thing, right? So there's been a number of jobs where he has the client talk to me, on to get them prepared for this Ecobee, because there's certain things when they get the Ecobee with the sensors, you got to be careful where you lay those sensors out in the room, because that will throw off the measurements of the Ecobee. I usually put the sensors next to where we sit in the room the most, right? Because I found if you put it up against the wall, too high, too low, it throws off the sensor in that room, and your Ecobee then starts to balance a temperature that's not what represents where you are sitting. Right. And people didn't realize that, and I had to tell them, if you put this sensor in your kitchen by that door that opens and closes all the time, it's going to throw off the Ecobee a lot. Right. Leave it out. Don't put it in the sun. It's going to really mess with that. And that starts to make it sound more complicated to them. But I have to go and give them that. He wants me to give them that talk, because he doesn't want, when they call him, he has no clue.
No, and my guy, he literally, as I was like, hey, I was thinking about putting an S thermostat in, he was already shaking his head like this, and he's like, we don't do that. And I was a little disappointed. I love the company that does my HVAC stuff here. I have them come, twice a year, do the checkup, the furnace check, the air conditioner check. He put in a sweet air conditioner for me, back in the fall. And I called him and said, hey, I'm not in no big hurry, but our air conditioner is 30 years old. So it's going to need to be replaced. He's like, oh, I'm going to give you a great deal. Don't worry about it. I'm going to come and take care of it. And he did. But it just took me by surprise when I was like, hey, would you consider throwing a Nest in and setting it up? And he was like, yeah, no. It was super funny. TJ, going back to some comments in chat, he said, we were talking about the interview for Matter, and he said, yeah, that interview changed his opinion as well. 100% skeptical going in. It sounds like that might be a really good interview to listen to if you're thinking about it. And then Tony says, is it possible to have a Matter enabled hub so I could use my Google friendly lights with HomeKit, or am I looking at it the wrong way?
I think you're looking at it the wrong way at that point, because if a device is made for Google, it's made for Google, right? And usually it's done that way so it doesn't work with anything else, and people are forced to buy the Google stuff, right? If the device says it's Matter compatible, and your Google device is Matter compatible, and your HomeKit's Matter compatible, that device will work with all of them. And you just add it to each one, and it adds to all of them. And it's like it's independent, but it's still together. So you got to think of it like that, right? You have to have the Matter device and the hub that you attach it to, or the hubs, all have to be Matter compatible as well.
So for the longest time, when I would buy IoT on Amazon, it would say, hey, I'm Amazon or Google Assistant compliant type thing. Should we be looking for Matter compliant? Is that something that's showing up as on the descriptions now? Is that happening?
Yeah, the branding, they add branding now to products. So I think it's, if you look like Eve sensors on Amazon, you'll see them with the actual Matter branding on them, right? Okay. Because I think they were some of the first to actually come out with devices that are Matter compatible, right? So you want to look for the Matter, and usually, like my Aquara ones, I have the contact sensors that are Matter compatible, and they work really well. And like I said, I can add them to my HomeKit and to my Home Assistant, right? So I have them in both ecosystems, right? It's kind of, sometimes it's kind of redundant though, the way things are today, because a lot of these ecosystems had to bridge things in a way to get around that already. So usually I can add something to Home Assistant, and then I can expose it all to Amazon. I can expose it to HomeKit. I can expose it to Google and control it all through there anyway. But this one's adding the products directly to each one of those.
Now that's the maddening part of IoT, right?
Yes.
Today is that I could add it to all these. I might have it added to 3 different, I've got I might add it to a home assistant. Well, first of all, I'm going to add it to the A lady, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the hub we've been using. But then it's going to show up in Home Assistant. And for some folks, they might have a HomeKit, or they might not have another. They might have another hub. I have a Philips hub. That Philips hub just sits like it's there. It's exposed to my network. It does things. It shows up as a part of any of those. You go into the Alexa app, or you go into some of those apps. Maybe it's the D-Link app, or maybe it's the Miros app. They all start seeing things from each other, right? I mean, I think now we might suffer a little bit from too many options to be. And then I have trouble remembering, like our Christmas lights are on a Philips. I think it's Philips. It might be something different, but they're on their own app as well. And then I have to remember, and then I've got them plugged into a smart plug on the outside. And I'm like, did I schedule that on the smart? Because it comes on and off at a certain time every night. And I mistakenly set a time of the evening instead of setting sun up and sun down, which I should have done from the very beginning. Yeah. So then I was turning them on at 5:15, because when I set up those Christmas lights in December, that's when it got dark. But now they're coming on. Now it's light at 7, right? Or 6:30, whatever that is. So we got a plethora of options there, right? I mean, and then we've got some, right? Yeah. I mean, it is. Will Matter fix this, do you think? Or are it's just always going to be a struggle?
Matters, I don't know if Matter will fix this, but Matter will fix the issue of you don't have to buy a device and it only works with one ecosystem.
Okay.
So no matter what you have, if you have 3 ecosystems in your house, you're still going to have that problem. You don't know where it is, right?
Yeah.
And I was like that when I first started. I was buying all sorts of random devices and trying to get them all to work together. And I had one app for this set and one app for this set. And over time, I learned I centralized everything on a hub, and I kind of stuck to I stick as much to Z-Wave or Zigbee, but I know now what to look for whenever I'm investigating something new. Yeah. I know what I want it to work with, how I want it to work, how I want it to communicate, and if it doesn't meet everything I need, I just I don't bother with it, because it's gonna be more headache than anything, right? Yeah. And Home Assistant seems to be one of the one hub that kind of does the most when it comes to compatibility.
Seems like it, doesn't it? Yeah. It seems like that's kind of where I've landed. I get Black Friday deals from Habitat, and I always think like, ooh, they've got a pretty sweet offering going on right now too, right? And that would you call Habitat a Home Assistant competitor? Because they make the hardware too, but they also have a front end.
They are competitors. I'm a Home Assistant person because I'm more of a power user, and with the number of devices I have in my house, Home Assistant just works well. I also like the flexibility of Home Assistant. I can choose what USB sticks I want to use for Z-Wave or Zigbee or whatever. I can choose what hardware I run it. It runs on my Unraid box right now as a VM. I have so much power over it, but I had Habitat for years, and I really liked their development, like the developing on Habitat. So the programming and stuff was so much easier, more fun. I did a lot of development on it, and it's a very powerful hub. Yeah. I mean, if you're not going to go for something really powerful, and you don't want to deal with like Home Assistant, Habitat is a good choice as well. Very powerful hub that can do a lot. People knock it for the looks a lot of the time. They don't like.
It's just a block.
Well, not the hardware, but the interface itself.
Oh, it is bad. Yeah, it's not great.
It gets the most hate for that. But if you get around that, it's a really powerful hub that's compatible with a lot of things. So I recommend it.
It'd be great if you could take the Home Assistant app and put it on top of Habitat.
You can. Could you? All right. There's an integration that will connect the Habitat to the Home Assistant if you really want to. And you can use the Habitat for all the, automations, all the whatever you want, and then just expose the devices to Home Assistant, use the Home Assistant interface if you really wanted to. You can. Some people just expose them to HomeKit and use the HomeKit interface to control their devices instead, right? Like you can, but now you have two hubs running. You know, when I first switched over to Home Assistant, my Habitat I used for the antennas, and I added all the devices to Habitat, and then I just exposed them to Home Assistant and did all the automations.
Yeah. Well, and that's the trick, is knowing when to do what and where and how, right? So Tony follows up, says, so could it be attached to Google and HomeKit at the same time?
Yeah. Well, and again, going back into Matter device he's talking about, that's the point of it. It has like, it's I can't remember, multi-admin, I think they're calling it. So it can be in all ecosystems at the same time and controllable from each one of them.
Well, and that's good and bad in the sense that then, you know, for us, we're tinkering with all these different things, trying this, trying that. I mean, I had Habitat set up for a while. Then you and some others talked me into Home Assistant. And I love Home Assistant. I am never doing, no, I shouldn't say that. But right now, today, never doing anything different, right? Because I love the way Home Assistant works. It's easy to set up. You've coded for Home Assistant, right? You've written some things.
I guess I could call it that. Yeah, to get some things working. It's not as easy as Habitat, you know.
Right. Well, but you've gotten it done. For me, I'm not going to code to get it done, but it picks up most of what I want. I mean, I've even got it integrated in with my car. Yep. So I've got a dashboard for my car that says tire pressure, oil change, when that's coming up. If it's locked, like I just didn't realize this. It's telling me on the dashboard. I was looking at it to be like, here's what it offers. And it's telling me it's locked. And I didn't know that, actually. That'll save me, because sometimes when I go to bed, either I grab the fob and just make sure it's locked, or I grab my phone and I just, I go on the app and make sure it's locked. I could have been looking here the whole time. So I've got odometer. I have how much my range is left on it. So in theory, I could look at it in the morning and say, can I make it to work? That's really never a consideration. And then an average fuel consumption. So I'm seeing that in Home Assistant, which is super cool. Like my printer ink levels are there. That was easy to get. All the battery levels for my Ring devices are there. All the light for both, for the light bulbs that I've bought, that don't have a hub, to the Philips ones that do have a hub. They're all there. They all work, right? I bought some, I'll remember this in a second, but I bought some humidity detectors, right? Humostats.
Yes.
That for the cigars, right?
Yes.
Those are all in there, right? They tell me temperature.
Those were the Bluetooth ones, right?
Yeah, the Bluetooth ones. Yeah, humidity. I bought a sensor for it so that would work. And what the battery level is, right? And then I even bought a new one of those that I put in the garage to tell me, when it gets really cold, we want to turn the heater on to heat the garage during particularly cold times during the winter. So I've just found Home Assistant to be a really good hub for that. Would you disagree or agree with that?
I'll agree with that totally. I found when I went to Home Assistant, I had to do actually less coding, because somebody already did everything I wanted to do. There was just one, like my floodlights I wanted to get done a certain way, so I wrote that integration myself. But it was already there, and it's not. This is why I say Habitat's a nice hub too, is because you can do all this stuff in Habitat, but it's a little bit more complicated. I found myself having to spin up like Dockers and create Dockers to do processing and pass that information over to Habitat. But I was able to do it anywhere, where in Home Assistant, it kind of, some of the integrations actually spin up a Docker. You just don't know about it, but it's all managed by Home Assistant and integrated that way. And it's really nice.
Yeah. I not recently, maybe 2 years ago, retrofitted. I have an old garage door opener, a standard, with a remote, and it's got the switches, the remotes have switches, and it's got a little, you can go up on the remote and flip them and then go on your remote control. So there's a setting inside your garage door opener, right, where you can say, hey, I want to set these codes. And then you go to the remote itself and set those codes, and then it works. It's old school. But I installed a Miros garage door opener on. I think the Meross. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah,
Miros, is that right? And that thing has been dynamite. I did set it up to automatically close my garage door after it had been open for 30 minutes. That's not actually what I really wanted, because on the weekends I'd go out, open the garage door, start working outside, then it would close. And then I was like, oh, I gotta get my phone out of my pocket. Oftentimes when I'm mowing the lawn, I don't carry the phone. Then I gotta, is the door to my car open so I can hit the garage door opener, right? Eventually, for some reason, that 30-minute thing stopped. I think I lost an integration on the phone to the on the garage door opener to the Wi-Fi or something along those lines. And I was actually super happy, like it stopped working. It's one of those kind of things. And because I didn't really find I really only bought the integration for the automatic closing. I've been known to leave my garage door open at night, Now, it's really easy. When I'm done working here, I just walk by the garage door, open the door, look and see if it's still open and close it. But you recently put a new garage door opener in. So talk a little bit about that one.
Well, yeah, lately there's been a lot of excitement in the smart home world because MyQ eventually shut down their API, which basically broke it and blocked it for everybody that was integrating their garage door using MyQ with whatever system, right? So when that happened, people started going to find alternatives, right? And one of the most popular alternatives I saw was something called RAT GDO, right? And it stands for Rage Against the Garage Door Opener. I always found that funny, right? But that's basically, it came out of the frustration of MyQ getting shut down. Right?
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Rage against the garage door opener. That's hilarious.
So I threw that in. I got two of them. I have two garage door openers, and one's an old school one. So pretty much the contact, you can like touch them and it will trigger it. And one's the new school one where it's kind of like encoded along the switch. You got to get a little funkier to get that working. But I installed these and a lot of people are loving them. It's a very easy install. I mean, you pretty much just, on top of your garage door opener, you run some wires and plug it into it. And it's basically the sensors go into it. And then the panel goes into it. And then from that, it goes into the garage door opener. And the instructions are very simple and it works. It's very popular. It's cheap. I think it worked out to like $45 or something like that. Each.
I think I paid about 40 for mine too, Miro.
Yeah, and it's really cheap. You could set it up multiple ways. I'm using the MQTT integration with it, but there's also an ESP Home integration with it. The MQTT one is not as stable yet, but people say the ESP Home one, if you do it through that, it works beautifully. It integrates with pretty much everything. Like if you want to use it with whatever hub, you can get it working with whatever hub. It's just a nice replacement that just works simple. I'm like you where I'll go mow the lawn and I want to open and close the garage. Well, with me, I just talk into my watch, tell it to open the garage.
Yeah.
I have my earbuds on at the time. So I just signal on the earbuds, open and close the garage. And it does it for me, right? And people always look at me funny. I'm just like, you have that. I'm proud I could do that because other people ask you, how do you do that? And I'm like, like, you want to pay me?
Does it ask for a code?
Huh?
Gavin, does it ask for a code? So the Miros implementation for me will not let me open it unless I have a code. And so now on the watch, it was really weird. Like the watch didn't require the code. The Amazon device required a code to do. The watch wouldn't, but there were some weird situations where my watch, I'd say open and open and open and open, and it wouldn't. There's like the Wi-Fi. It was weird. I don't know. It never really, I wanted it to work on my watch, but it was weird. Ironically, the farther I got away from my garage door, the easier it would open on my watch. If I was standing right in front of my garage door, it would not open.
It's probably fighting on your Wi-Fi. It could be fighting on the Wi-Fi. When you go further away, it switches to 3G cellular. Or whatever, 5G. So that's probably what could have been happening. But
Yeah.
depending on the ecosystem, you may actually get asked for a code. So I know TJ was fighting recently with this. On his home kit, he has it on HomeKit. I think it was for his locks though, where it asked him to unlock his phone or something with his car, right? And one way around that, I used to do this in the past, is I created another dummy switch that then I would trigger that one, and then that one would trigger the garage door opener to open and close. And that's how I got around it, because it would ask you for a code if you said open the garage door opener. But if you said turn on the switch or whatever, it doesn't see it as a garage door opener. It won't ask for the code. So that's how I kind of got around all that.
In Home Assistant, you would do that. So you created a switch for it instead of using the integrated app to get it done.
You do it with the Amazon too. Like if you created a little device in there, I created a little dummy device, and then I set up a little routine. So if it heard me say do this, then just flick that switch, and then your routine was, if this switch turns on, open the garage door opener.
Now, don't get me wrong, I don't mind it. Like, that's a nice security feature.
Yeah.
So that some yahoo doesn't come by and has an easy way to open the garage door, right? I did like. I mean, I had a Amazon device in my garage.
Yeah.
Listening, so I could go out there and say, turn on the garage light and do whatever, do whatever I wanted. I didn't want someone shouting, through the garage door, hey, open the garage door. So it does require, and now it's broken, so it wouldn't even work anyways. But I didn't mind the code bit. But it was one of those things, like, I'd walk up to the garage door, I'd get on my watch, I'd open the Miros app, I'd say open, nothing. Open. I'd walk to the end of the driveway and the thing would open. I'm like, John and said in chat too, he says he's still trying to get Home Assistant successfully to open and close the garage door when he arrives. He says he spent a couple hours on this so far. Do you think in that area, like with garage doors, like with these devices that are designed to retrofit on an existing dumb device, right? Do you think in the last couple years they've gotten better so that if you bought one 3 or 4 years ago, it might be worth buying a new one? Or I don't know. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, they have gotten like, the technology's been moving fast. They've gotten a lot better. Like, again, it comes down to the communication protocol. So like, if you got one many years ago and it was Z-Wave before 500, I can't even remember what was it before 500, a non-plus device.
Yeah.
And nowadays, the Z-Wave 800 devices are so much better when it comes to range, when it comes to speed, the bandwidth, like stuff like that. So it's worth doing the upgrade to 800 if you have a really old Z-Wave device. So they're coming along, even with the Wi-Fi radios, the battery life on wireless devices have gotten a lot better now because they manage it a lot better. The technology is moving. It's all like little things they're doing under the hood, that's getting better over time. You may not see it like in an app or something, but you'll realize you haven't changed your battery for your blinds in so long, right? And because
they're dead. They're just dead.
Well, either they're dead or they just last a lot longer now, right?
Yeah,
because the technology, it doesn't suck as much battery anymore. So that's where I think it's getting better. So if you have really old devices, it may be worth looking at replacing them, getting something new, especially if you're replacing the batteries very often.
Yeah. It's hard. You spent a bunch of money for that 3 or 4 years ago. And now to replace it with something better is half or a third of the price. But you're still like, man, I spent so much money on that switch. I'm not going to replace it, right? It's one of those things. TJ says he says my van has a cell remote start. I have that too on an app on my phone, so I could start, lock, and unlock it. What I love about my Subaru app that I have in there, you can even set custom heat and cooling settings, so you can go in and say, no, I want this, on custom setting A or custom setting B, depending on how cold it is when you get out there, right? Type thing. Then he says, I have brought into HomeKit through Home Assistant, and I want to control it with my voice, but it makes you unlock the phone before you can unlock. And that's some of these things we run into, right? Where and I think for good reason, where we have some security protocols put in place, right, on this, where, you just don't, I think about my furnace. I almost want some kind of security protocol on there so somebody doesn't hack into it and then raise the furnace to 9,000 degrees and cook me out of the house, right?
Yeah, that's true. But things like the ecobee do have protections against that.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the good thing. They have highs and lows. So in some of my automations, I never turn off the thermostat in any of my automations. I just set it to really high or really low so it doesn't kick in. But I set it to a level like 18 degrees. So if someone left the door open and it just wouldn't try to heat up a home when the door is left open, right? But if it got down to like 18 degrees or anywhere lower where, pipes can start getting affected and stuff, it will still kick in to try and keep the house warm at that point, right?
Yeah.
So you got to think about that stuff when you're creating automations too.
We have our local utility is actually encouraging this now. They have got a rebate if you purchase a Nest or an ecobee. And then of course, I have a device they put on the outside of my house years ago, maybe 8 years ago, that I give them some control of my air conditioner during the peak times of the summer so that they can kind of run it in their own time, and they say, hey, we'll only use it 10 times or less. I mean, they and I've actually never noticed, to be honest. Now that we have smart thermostats, they're saying, hey, we'll give you, I don't know, $75, whatever it is, to put a smart thermostat in. And if you do it through one of our vendors, it's a little bit more, which I think guarantees it gets set up right. And then they'll control your thermostat they'll control your devices that way. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about letting your utilities control some of your either your heater or your air conditioner during peak times?
I don't like it because it takes away some of the, like customizations that I want to do. Like I want to feel a certain way in my house, but then they say, no, it's peak time. We want it to be this much. Right. And it's like, I don't want to lose that control. But, that being said, when you do buy the ecobee and they give you the rebate and everything, all they're really doing is they linked an app to that ecobee. And if you went into the ecobee web interface, you could actually just delete the app, and now you got full control of your ecobee again.
Oh, is that the way it works?
And you still got the rebate. I'm just telling you that because I know some people that have done it, right? So you still got the rebate, and you get your ecobee back, and it's good for the general masses. I guess they do it for electricity savings, for stuff like that. I'm good, but I noticed in my house when I had that app running, my house was getting warm during the day, and because I'm home all the time, it's like it's too warm. What they consider nice, it was too warm for me, so I didn't like it at all.
Okay. I'm maybe not home when they're doing those kinds of things, right? I think that's maybe what they're banking on. I didn't think about it during the pandemic. I've never felt, as I've gotten older, I've gotten a little, I don't notice those things as much as I used to, kind of deal. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I do go back and forth. It's like with solar. Have you done solar, Gavin? Have you?
No.
Would it be beneficial to you at all in your area? You're farther north, so maybe that wouldn't be as advantageous, but have you looked at it?
I did an electrical course, and the teacher kind of talked me out of solar because he basically said the one thing with solar is, if you ever have to get the roof replaced, you're going to have to call in people to come remove the solar panels, replace the roof, put the solar panels back on. And in our areas, the way he explained it to me is we don't actually bank the power. We give the power back to the city and then
to the grid.
And they pay us a little bit off our bill or something like that. So I'm like, the return on investment for us was like almost 10 years for solar. And I'm like, it's not really worth it. Yeah,
that's exactly where we've been here in Nebraska, is by the time you make the investment, the payoff is a 8 to 10 year payoff. And then those solar panels aren't effective anymore. And now in the last couple years, solar's gotten a lot better. So that equation may have changed. if you can get a solar panel the last 15 or 20 years, you might have a good shot at it. Or because utilities are so cheap in Nebraska, like we're one of the cheapest in the country. Or if your utilities are super expensive, right? If you're paying 22 or 25 or 30 cents a kilowatt, we pay 12. We used to pay 10, which is ridiculous. Like you're like, I mean, there's only a few other spots in the country where it's that cheap. So, and then I remember my neighbor who works for our utility company said, "Oh, they're going to raise their rates." And I was like, "To what?" They're like, 12. And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, listen, I talk to people all around the country, and that's still super cheap, right?
Yeah.
So I don't, by the way, let me say this. If you're watching or if you're listening to the audio of this podcast after the fact, you might want to head out to the YouTube version of this, the live YouTube version of it. I think put in the average guy or the average guy TV on YouTube, because there's a lot of good stuff going on in the chat right now. They're getting super technical right at this point. And you might want to just catch that replay in chat that's there. But so every time I think about solar, I kind of come like it's a break even for me from that standpoint. So, and I haven't experienced any problem. We've got that when we had the new air conditioner put in, the HVAC guy said, "You're going to have to call OPPD, our utility company." Yeah. He's like, "I don't hook those back up." They've got to come hook those up. Yeah. He's like, I don't want to be responsible for that. They have to come back. So I called them, and they came back. They guarantee some short, 15 times a year, 10 times a year will, in the most critical times when it's super hot, I've never noticed any difference. Yeah. So I don't know. I think I'm okay with it for now, but you never really know. I think the last time we talked, you were doing some, and maybe it's too early to talk about this because it's been winter, but you did some moisture or some lawn moisture sensing devices. Yeah. Is it too early to talk about that at this point?
I haven't put them out yet for this year. Okay. The ground's still pretty frozen at this point.
It's been pretty warm. Have you been tempted?
But we still have that frost line. So if I try and put my lawn thermometer in, it's kind of hard still. But last year, it was great. Saved me a lot of money in watering. The grass was looking awesome.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah.
You feel it's worth it to go through all that?
You know what? The work I did, because so I had the ratio, and the ratio is just, it doesn't know what the differences in your zones. You program it, but it doesn't really know exactly what's going on in every zone. So it kind of just blanket waters the whole lawn, right? And I did that for a while, and I always felt like, oh man, 2.5 hours this thing wants to run for, like it always felt so long. So I got all the sensors, I put sensors in each zone, and I started monitoring how much moisture, and I found the range I wanted the moisture to be at. I found, how fast, how much watering was needed to bring the moisture up to that much, how fast it disappeared. And over the summer, I tweaked it a bit, and what happened was I ended up saving a lot of money because I found out there were zones that were actually holding the moisture really well. Oh, wow. So I didn't have to water them, and that grass grew great. And then there were zones that really were just drying out faster, I guess, where it was, how it ran out. And I would just water those a bit more, and the grass came out a lot better. It even found one of my broken, because I have an irrigation system, it found one of the broken heads because it was, after watering, it said, "Hey, this zone's still dry." Yeah. So I'd be like, okay, something's up. And I went out there and the head was sticking. So I fixed the head and everything. And I was like, there you go. Like, so if that's a project you're looking at doing, I highly recommend it. The more information you have on your lawn, the more you can act on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Last time we chatted, I almost bought some of those, and I was like, you
have to have the time to play with it too,
Yeah. Well, and maybe this spring I will. The front lawn is Zoysia, and it just does so well here in Nebraska. Zoysia grass, besides it getting brown in the winter, in the spring it comes back, you mow it down or burn it down. And it does so well. The back, I've actually taken away so much grass that, we built a big fire pit, and I'm kind of like, well, actually, I think I'm going to try this year not worrying about it and see where it goes. One of the
do that.
yeah, no, totally. A totally non-tech related item, but one that was funny. So we've had 1 week here this year, and you guys probably did too, where it got super cold. Like, it came in, we had it was like negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, Celsius and Fahrenheit meet at negative 40. I know that for sure. That's where those two meet. We were negative 20, so it was definitely in the negative Celsius, right?
Yeah.
Well, we were headed. That's my mother-in-law passed away, and we were headed down to Kansas City that week. I think I had to cancel the show for it, but we were headed down to Kentucky that Sunday. Saturday night, my kids came over. They were going to drive down with us. We rented this minivan, and one of my sons wanted to smoke a cigar out in the shed, and he's like, but he didn't tell me. He's like, "Hey, I'm going to go outside and clear some snow for you." He didn't say that exactly right. So he cleared this path from my deck to the shed, which is across the grass. And he cleared this path, and it was great. We enjoyed a cigar, and then, we did the thing. This spring, when all the snow melted, the grass is all green that was protected from the snow. But the path, dead. Just dead. Like, it'll come back. It'll be just fine. Yeah. But it's funny how the snow had insulated the grass from that extreme cold temperature, and it had done pretty well. Hey, one last thing I want to chat with you about before we wrap this up. And this is a subject I haven't really. I'm not a big remote, like TV remote guy.
Yeah.
But it seemed like for the longest time, every Harmony was in this space, right? And everybody's trying to figure out, like, how do we get the TV room? Are we still trying to figure that thing out? I mean, are there still people trying to? Doesn't the remotes you get with your? Are we beyond that, or is there still a space for really smart remote controls for your TV?
I think there's still a space for it. Like right now, like I've been looking out and keeping an eye out for anything that I call a Harmony killer, right? And when I say a Harmony killer, I'm talking about not just firing off IR signals, but being able to integrate the hub with whatever smart home hub you have, and create automations and stuff off of it. And there's not many out there. Yeah, he knows about my Harmony rants, right? Because I'm a big Harmony fan. I have about 5 of them, and I bought a backup, right? So I'm a big Harmony fan. But on the pro side, I get a little jealous because I see some of the remotes they have, and they're nice. But there's a school of thought here that people want simplified remotes now. They're happy with their Apple TV remote. Yeah. Right. And I understand that because, the less buttons, the less confusion from them, and they could do the 50 clicks. That would drive me nuts. I need a guide button to bring up my guide, like there's certain buttons I need on my remote. Right. And the 5-button remotes I can't work with. So I don't think we're there yet. There's some pretty looking remotes out there, but when it comes to automation and integration, Harmony to me is still one of, for the price point too, it's still one of the top ones out there, right? Yeah. And I just know them pretty well. Like I know how to program it. I know how to, integrate it. I worked with them for years, so I know like all my TVs work the exact same way. And that's, the wife, no matter what TV she goes to, it's the buttons work the same way. It does the same thing. I even have the red button. You hold it down, it brings up my outdoor camera. It's on the screen, all sorts of stuff like that. So I can talk about remotes, but Harmony to me is still
I don't see that still being a thing. That's hilarious.
Yeah. I think like I said, I think people have gotten to the point where they're just like, I like the simplified remote. And I think also there's CEC. So you could use your TV remote and it'll actually send the commands to your other devices, right? In the past, I know that was really awful. Like the recommendation was always just to turn that off, right? But I think now it looks like it's gotten a lot better. So you can get your TV remote and that will actually control maybe your Apple TV and stuff like that through CEC. So I think people are settling on that too, right? I'm just a remote power user.
Yeah,
I need all the buttons. Yeah, If they
That's
add
hilarious.
another button, I'll find a use for it, right?
That's
Like,
hilarious.
yeah.
Yeah. What's interesting is I have become the Fire TV, like in that remote is the ultimate in simplification, right?
Yes.
Little circle, couple buttons, I'm 7, maybe 8. I don't know. I never counted them. I have to count them. Behind the studio here, I actually I put my treadmill there, and then I got my TV that I use when I'm on the treadmill. I'll take the TV out. There's another setting or another what would you call it? By connection, where I can put the TV. I can hook the TV on it.
Yeah.
That uses the same one inside as it is outside, so I can just unplug the TV, take it outside, because I don't want to leave it out there, right? And the Fire remote for me is good enough. I mean, it just turn it on, flip through the options and kind of thing. I haven't thought about a non-remote remote I don't even use the TV remote that came with it, right? It turns itself, the Fire TV remote turns the thing on, does it? Well, now, okay, it's not fair. The TV I have is Fire enabled, right? So it came with a Fire remote with the power button on it, right? It has the Fire OS. Would you call it that? Is that what you call it?
I think so. Fire TV OS or something.
Yeah, Fire TV OS, whatever. It comes with it, right? So it's not fair, probably, to say I only have one remote, but
you're happy with that? Yeah,
it works for me. I can get to YouTube.
The Roku is the same way.
Yeah,
you get a Roku TV, you get a simple Roku remote, and you're using basically their interface on the TV, right? Where I think when you get more complicated TV setups, when you start looking at AV systems and stuff like that, it gets a little bit more complicated, right? And that's where the remotes come into, you need more buttons.
Right? All right. Yeah. Like when you were like in the old media center days, right? When you needed, or did you really need all those buttons? I guess is what I'm saying.
I feel like I use more buttons today than I did back then. But like when people come see my TV setup and they're like, "Oh man, I want that," and I'm like, "No, you can't have this," because first of all, we can't buy you a Harmony remote.
You can't handle the truth.
Yeah, they're like, can I see all my cameras on my TV like that?" And I'm like, "Oh man, you can't. No, I can't give you a remote."
Yeah.
Here's an Apple TV. Be happy.
Yeah. Greg out in chat says he's left his TV outside in a partially covered space for years and it's fine.
Yeah.
I said, where do you live, my friend? And then he says Springfield. No, wait a minute. Springfield, Illinois. Yeah. I'm afraid to kind of leave my TVs here in Nebraska. Springfield's very similar to where we are here. I'm afraid to leave those TVs outside from. It gets -20 here. I don't know if I'd want my TV. I don't know. What do you think? A modern TV outside when it's -20? Don't you worry about that?
When it's that cold, I would worry about it. In my area, I wouldn't leave a TV out. It would probably last the season. It just wouldn't be out there when I went the next morning due to theft.
I got you.
I think my TVs in my area would get stolen before anything, right? And the funny part is I'll probably see the TV powered on in the neighbor's yard at some point too.
You'd have the remote for it. You could tell, turn it on and off, and your neighbor would be like, "What the?"
Yeah, every time he turns it on, he's gonna be like, "This TV doesn't work," and then he returns it.
Greg makes a good point. He says it's a 65-inch TV that I use to live in my house, but then he replaced it. That's a good. That's a good outside TV, right? One that you replace it with something bigger, and then. He said, I figured a replacement would cost me $250, maybe less. Yeah. Like you can get a really nice TV for $200 at this point. It's crazy.
Really?
How cheap?
Here, not that cheap.
Oh no, here at Walmart, especially during Super Bowl time. So like last month, everybody's buying new TVs like crazy, and so you get a nice TV for $200 and not giant, but you can get a fairly decent TV for that. So yeah, I've been a little, I keep it downstairs because I want to use it on my treadmill, and I'm never on my treadmill and out on my deck at the same time. So if it's one of those nice dual purpose, like, hey, if I'm going to be out on the deck for a while, I'll just come down here, unplug it, lift it off, take it out. I've got a holder for it out there. A mount, slide it on, plug it in. There's a plug right by it.
Yeah.
And just take the remote, and it works great. It's 32-inch, 1080p. Works great outside. So
yeah, you could probably install Plex or something on it if you want to stream from inside the house. Or
Channels is what we use. So Channels has an app, and so if I wanted to watch regular TV, I could. We got channels on it. Used to YouTube. Perfect. It works great. I don't have any problems with it. And that little remote is awesome. Like, so I don't know. You guys talk about Harmony remotes, and I'm kind of like, isn't that a little much?
It depends on what you want, because my mom's TV, I gave her Harmony remotes because she likes to change channels by number. Like, she memorizes the numbers of her favorite channels. She doesn't know what the station is, but she knows at this time go to 16 for General Hospital, and she her show, right? Yeah. So if her remotes didn't have the numbers on it, she would be pretty upset, And I tried training her for the talk to it, but it's just difficult, like you're supposed to tap the button, but she'll hold it and then let go, and then by the time she talks, it's already given up listening. So I was just like, yeah, here's Harmony remote, just like,
oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, seniors in technology. I hope I'm not like that.
No, we're gonna be though.
I know. We're gonna be VR or something.
I'm 55 now. I'm always wondering what 20 years from now am I going to be the old man who tells my kids, like, I don't understand any of this tech.
TikTok's dumb. I'm already
exactly. What will they have? Yeah.
Exactly.
What will they have? TJ says most of the time they're fine as long as they're not in direct weather. The spot I put it in would be in direct weather, unfortunately. Yeah. So he said we installed 4 65-inch TVs in a partially covered patio 4 years ago or so, and they still work. Yeah. I you know what? That's probably. I'll be honest. I turned my shed into a cigar smoke shack. Yeah. And I had a monitor out there, an LCD monitor. And I was like, with the extreme temperatures, I don't know if I want to, it is a liquid, right? And so I was like, so I pulled them in for the winter. TJ, maybe in that case, he
does a lot of installs of TVs. I'm more shocked that his TV's still hanging after 4 years. I'm just kidding, TJ. I'm just kidding.
Great.
See, this is the kind of stuff you guys never.
No, hear I like it. I like it. I like it a lot. I like the shade being thrown. Greg says mine is behind the bar, and and actually mine is covered, but I wouldn't be afraid of it getting stolen. I think I would cover it if I left it out there. But it is really easy, as light as these TVs are, like unplug it and pull it off. I have the same stand down here that I have outside. So they just, you just lift it up. And it's one of those, I don't know, 10 millimeter, whatever, maybe Visa mounts.
Yeah.
Right. And they just slide on and slide off. And that kind of works for me. Okay, one more thing, Gavin, before I let you go. You throw this in the show notes. Seriously, do we need to have our dryers on home automation? My dryer, when it's done, goes meh, 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 lets me know. I hear it throughout the house. Do I really need a notification on my watch or whatever that the dryer's done? Are you thinking about that?
Sometimes we do automations not because it's practical, but because we want it. I don't care. It's like I want my dryer to notify me, even though I'm sitting next to this thing. Right? Yeah.
It's literally. I could almost touch it where I'm sitting right now. So
exactly.
I hear it all the time, but yeah.
But we get this question actually comes up a lot. A lot of people ping me about this. They're like, how can I automate my dryer so that it notifies me when it's done? And I think one of the popular things people do is they like to get the little vibration sensors. right? And put it on there so when the dryer's shaking, whatever. But I'm not a fan of that for multiple reasons. One, it could be triggered by other means, like people were getting false triggers, or it takes a while for it to, based on your automation, to notify you that it's done, right? And also the battery life on them, because it's shaking now through the whole dryer cycle, right? It's constantly sending signal that, hey, I'm vibrating, right? The batteries, I had this set up and the battery was gone after like a couple months, right? And we didn't even do that much laundry. So I don't really recommend those. What I have set up is a current sensing switch. And basically it's just a little, like, I don't even know how to explain it, like a ring that goes around one of the legs of the power. And when it senses a current, it kind of turns on or off of the switch. Like, and I hook it up. It's just, I hook it up to a Z-Wave contact sensor that allows external inputs, and Echolink, right? I think that's the brand name, but it allows external contacts. So basically, when it detects energy or power, it will just open the contact on the switch. And when the power is gone, it closes the contact. And that has been the most reliable thing for me ever.
So just to know it's on.
Just basically? To know it's on and off. Okay. Yes. Okay. And this one, again, had no practical reason behind it because we could hear it all. It was, but I did it more for research purposes, I guess you could say, because when people ask me, I'm like, this is what works the best for me. Yeah. Right. And I've tried other things, but this one, like when they say vibration sensor, I'm always like, no, don't do the vibration sensor thing. Yeah. It seems easy, but this one's so great.
Well, in a dryer, some of the better dryers, some of the newer dryers, they know that they sense the humidity. Yeah. And so they know in the dry, like the real danger in a dryer is the fire that can be created in the output, right? In the vent for it. Otherwise, well, and if they're running and not drying, but most of them have some kind of cutoff that, they'll eventually just quit. And then you can go in there and you're like, oh, my clothes are still wet. What's going on? Right. Well, yeah, the moisture's not getting, not leaving, or you're dangerously close to a fire starting. Right. I mean, man, if you've ever taken lint and set it on fire, that's an exciting thing, right? So as I looked at this, I'd love to have a sensor, almost a sensor at the output of the dryer, of the air going out, that is some kind of temperature sensor that says if it gets above, 400 degrees, maybe I'd have to look into that to see what it is. Alert me, because my dryer's about to burn up, right? And that kind of deal. Or I'm thinking it would be would it be? I'm just thinking about
I've heard of people use temperature sensors to sense it on and off too, because when it's on, it's going to shoot out some heat, right? So they put it near the exhaust or whatever. And they've done that too. I mean, that's another simple, but it's just, it takes a while before it registers on, and it's going to take a while before it registers off. You got to keep that in mind.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, it's well, I mean, you think about the washer and the dryer, there's potential for real damage for both of those. Yeah. Water. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I caught my washer leaking once, right? And my sensor, I have a water sensor right by my washer, and it notified me. And, first time you get this notification, you're like, is this real, or is it, like a bug or something? But then I went in there and there was a pool of water and I was able to catch it. So
that was a water sensor that you used?
Next to my I just put it in the area of my washing machine, just next to the washing machine.
You ever, would you put, some people put their hot water heaters in a pan.
I did.
Right. And so then you would put the sensor in the pan, right? Just in case for that. Would you think about doing that for a washer?
There are washers, yes. And it depends though. If you have like a drain by your washer, you can like Like with my water heater, I put it in a pan because then you can force the water if it leaks down into the drain that's sitting right next to it, instead of it just going all over the basement, right? So that's kind of why I did it down there. And with the washing machine, I would do the same thing if I could, but I don't have a drain by it. So it makes sense, because if it's going to leak way more water than any pan can hold.
Right. It's true. Well, but just thinking about collecting, if you have a pan, you'll get that water sensor much faster than you would if you didn't have a pan. Just kind of thinking about that. This is a hilarious conversation. So Tony says John probably uses his dryer outlet to charge his Tesla. John says, I could if needed. I have the adapter. Yeah. Then John says, a couple years ago, I took my dryer apart and the lint was packed in that area beyond the filter. Listen, your dryer is disgusting. Yeah. If you have ever, not really, it's just lint. But if you've never really got in there and cleaned your dryer out, they make a special vacuum attachment where you can put that in the lint. You think that filter is getting it? You are totally wrong. Like, we have a new dryer. I haven't taken it apart in a while. We had an old dryer. I took that thing apart every 2 years because it was breaking all the time, and I clean all that stuff out. It's disgusting what's in there. Mm-hmm. And then Tony says, I was just checking to see if you were still
here. These guys are out for each other. Right?
That is awesome. Listen, tonight, Greg and TJ and Greg, thanks for joining us tonight. I know you guys are here because Gavin's here, but I appreciate you guys. That is
if you want to clean a disgusting filter, and I only found out about this recently, but your dishwasher filter.
Oh yeah,
I only found out about that recently. We've had this dishwasher for probably 8 years now. I know. So it was pretty bad.
Yeah, and that's another area nobody talks about with home automation is your dishwasher, right? I mean, do you know of any kind of things that come along with that?
I know people that have set up like contact sensors, so when it's opened or closed or something after you turned it on. You could do the same thing as you do with your dryer, though. If you want to put a current sensing switch around it to detect when it's running and when it's done, you can. A lot of these companies, though, are building in smarts to their devices now. It's just that their apps or their cloud services really are bad.
Yeah.
That's the only problem, right? But you can automate almost anything if you really want to. It's just what you want to do.
Yeah. John says, I have a Moen flow system, sensors by washing machine, and the water heater pan automatically shuts off the water when it's triggered. Yeah. And I think that's looking for flow, right? Unusual flow and some of those kinds of things. And
I think TJ had one of those too.
Yeah, not a bad thing to have, right?
Yeah.
Tony says, let's not forget that in the last podcast, I mentioned how Gavin was right. So
I hear that a lot.
He's kissing ass at this point. And Justin reminds us that washing machines have filters too.
You see, I learned that now today. I don't want to check that one.
I don't. Yeah, I did. I did just today.
We've been earring though. I wonder if it's there.
It probably is. We have a filter in our fridge, and I finally just set that up on an Amazon automatic every 3 months or 6 months, I think, so that it would remind me to change that thing. And it just came today. So I've got to change that. And then Tony says, and how much we use too much detergent and shouldn't use fabric softener. That would be, that'd be a nice automation to sense the softness of the clothes.
That gets a little more complicated.
Hey, you're using too much fabric softener. Let's be clear. If you're listening to this show, you don't even know how your washer or dryer work. So let's be really clear about that. You have no idea. So, and there's those, and also we think about those, and I forget the name of it, but that orange box that you can put on your the inlet for your energy, for your electricity, that current, is it called current? No, but it attempts to, you put these clamps around the cables that come in. Sense, that's what it is.
Yes.
Where then it attempts to kind of figure out, I tell you what, with AI, that may be a thing that's getting better as time progresses, of knowing like what's taking a lot. That might be one of those things where it starts learning like, hey, your dishwasher is taking a lot of energy. you might want to consider replacing it, right?
That's where I'm hoping this goes soon, right? Like this is what I want to see with AI, is it to monitor your house. It's going to get all the data. And I wanted to analyze that data and say, hey, you're using a lot of energy in this house. It's coming from this. We should maybe look into that. Or, it's about to rain. You have windows open. You should maybe close them, Like I want the AI to do that. Not control anything, but just let me know, right? Automatically. I could do that with automations and stuff. I don't want to set it up. AI will know just what to do.
Yeah.
That's the future.
Well, and think about, we were just talking about the weather changing from really nice to really cold, and how sweet would it be if the house began to adapt automatically?
I already started working on that. It's expensive though, but I have like one side of my house, the blinds and stuff are all automated.
Right.
So now when the sun comes up in the morning, I can have it open slightly as the day goes along to keep the rooms cooler. One of them's my office. So that's the plan for this year.
Yeah. Right? Well, but in the winter, you'd want them to open earlier so that you could get so they would have seasonal, and then maybe even if you had sensors in the rooms, they could start learning, okay, if I open up this much, it has this effect. And so the next time I know if the outside conditions are this and we're expecting that, only open this much, right?
That's the future of AI. That's why I'm hoping AI takes us.
And then it murders us in our sleep.
And that sets everything to maximum and burns us in the house.
It realizes we're the weak link. And it's
inefficient.
Like, hey, you know what? I would be much happier if you weren't ever in the house. And it just locks us out. Well, Gavin, thanks for coming. It's always great to spend time with you, man. Thanks for jumping in here. I hope this has been helpful for somebody, but it is certainly the most chat we've had in a while. So Justin and Tony and Greg, TJ, John coming out here. Let's see who else I see. Brian was out here a little bit earlier, and Ken jumping in the chat room. Tony, if I didn't mention your name yet, thanks for coming out and being a part of this tonight. Super fun. It was a fun evening to just hang out, lots of laughing. And what's coming up? Anything coming up on hometech.fm that you guys want to talk about?
Seth has been traveling right now, so I'm not even sure what he's doing. Like,
nothing. He's not on my show, so apparently he's doing nothing.
He checks in with us every now and then, so we kind of miss this week, but there's surprisingly every week we look at the news and we're like, is there anything to talk about this week? But then we have like an hour-long podcast or an hour and a half long podcast. And it's shocking because we actually do a lot of projects ourselves. We talk about them, like I could go into Unraid, and the changes I've made in my house about that, or my Z-Wave floodlight conversion project I've been working on. We've been doing. We all have our little projects. TJ's gotten some new products he's going to be reviewing. So like it's a lot going on. Yeah. No, it's good. Head out there, hometech.fm, and make sure you're subscribed to it as a podcast. Way nerdier than this, than our time here, but just as fun. But it's super fun. You guys do a nice job. You guys do, and we'll have to get Seth on the podcast so I can have all three of you from Home Tech on there as well. Gavin, can you hang out for just a second here? Of course. If you guys got any questions for Gavin, we'll do a short post show. Throw them in the chat right now. We'll talk about them here after the recording stops. But a couple reminders on the way out. If you want to join us in our Discord, do you guys have for Home Tech? Do you guys have a Discord, or what do you guys do for that? We have a Slack channel for all our Patreons. Okay. As soon as you pledge whatever, I think it's all automated. You just put you in the Slack. We also have a Mastodon server we host. People are still doing social. Okay. You know what? I love my Mastodon. I have so much interaction on Mastodon when I post something, much more than Twitter. I think I get lost in Twitter. Like anything I post on Twitter, I think just gets lost by the algorithms. But in Mastodon, I can ask a 3D printer question, and I got a lot of replies from knowledgeable people. Okay. So I'm really liking it. Yeah, that's one place I never moved to. I mean, I'm on everything else, but I mean, interaction is just really good. I like it. All right. Well, I'm not going to go there. No, but you keep answering questions, or you keep getting information out there.
If you want to join we do Discord, so head out to theaverageguy.tv/Discord. You can leave me a message if you got a question for the show or whatever, homegadgetgeeks.com. Shoot me an email at jim@theaverageguy.tv when you leave that message, so I make sure I pick it up the next week. And then a reminder, theaverageguy.tv platform, both web and media hosting, powered by Maple Grove Partners. Get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from people that you know and you trust, and you know that's Christian. You can check it out today, maplegrovepartners.com. I think he still has some plans as cheap as $10 a month. So if you need hosting, he will get that done for you. I want to thank you for joining us tonight. For everybody who came out in the chat room, really appreciate it. It was a fun night to kind of hang out, laugh. We laughed a lot tonight, and that's always a ton of fun. If you are listening live, stay around for a smidgen of the post show. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody. Gavin, thanks, man. That was a ton of fun. How long was
that? That was like, you see, like an hour and a half almost.
Oh, yeah. Hour and 20.
Yeah.
Hour and 20 because we goofed around a little bit in the beginning. So, Tony, thanks for that. John says always great to hang out. And Gavin checking in there as well. Greg says, have you tried using a magic eraser on your TV yet?
Have you heard this story yet?
No.
Oh man, so TJ found out recently that have you seen the frame TVs?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well,
Aaron has been talking about them.
That's Samsung, right? He found out recently that it's actually recommended by Samsung support that if you want to get smudges off the frame TV, to use the magic eraser.
Oh.
And none of us believed it at first. None of us. We were like, no. Why? That's just going to destroy the TV. Well, TJ, in the name of science, has a frame TV and decided to. It was kind of funny because he went to the store to actually buy one, and he had to figure out which one he wanted. Like, watching the whole process was actually funny. And then he came home and he tried it, and it worked. And like, we could not believe it. And that was the first time any of us heard about that. I'm just afraid to say this as a recommendation because you would say use it on the frame TV, but people would hear use it on every TV.
On a TV. Are you afraid they would scratch it? What are you afraid of?
It would scratch the TV. It's not meant for it. This is only supposed to be for the frame TV. I wouldn't use this on a regular TV because it's a different screen on the frame TVs. But we didn't believe it. And
TJ, how big of a frame TV did you buy? What did you buy? Just throw that in the chat room. So
that's an even funnier story.
And how much was it?
He inherited it.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. How big is it? Yeah. He says everyone I tell about this.
They think he's lying. Like, he's like, just use a magic eraser on your TV, your frame TV. And they're like, you're whatever. Can I talk to your lead tech, please?
He says the matte screen makes a difference, though. Do not use it on a regular screen TV. So let's be clear. He did purchase he did inherit a 65-inch. And he did say he bought it because I damaged it from a client. So.
You see, the story keeps getting better.
Hilarious.
We have some good times with it.
That is so
TJ
great.
has an exciting life.
Bust out. You missed most of the good show, but we recorded it for you. So welcome if you made it. We have laughed a lot tonight. This has been a fun show to do. Magic eraser. Wow.
On the frame TV only, you always have to say that together.
Because, and is that because of the so it's a different kind of glass that they have on there? Is that? Yeah.
And TJ, he took one for the TV, he tried it, and he swears by it now. But just make sure it's only on that TV.
That's hilarious. Greg, you got to come out more often. And then Bust Out says, thanks for recording it specifically. We had you in mind, Bust Out, when we were thinking about accidentally, of course. Magic Eraser does. That's an old, my wife used to do house cleaning, and that's an old magic. Like when I was in the military and you were trying to clear your housing, man, that Magic Eraser could do some
other one that's shocking me is the Scrub Daddy. Like I wasn't a believer of that. Like this is weird, right? Well, not for TVs, but
I've never heard of Scrub Daddy.
They were on Dragon's Den or something like that at one point. Now they're like $100 million company. But we were cleaning out the oven the other day, and no matter what we tried, it wasn't working. So the wife went out and she looked it up, and she said someone recommended getting a Scrub Daddy. So she went out and got a Scrub Daddy, and then she, it came with a little paste, and we started manually doing the oven door, and it was working. I was in shock, right? So, about 20 minutes of that and our arm was hurting. So I went on it gets better. I went on printables.com and I downloaded a Scrub Daddy 3D printable model for my drill. And you put the Scrub Daddy in it, and then you put the drill onto the drill, and we sat there with the drill, and it worked perfectly. So that's now sitting in the bathroom, the attachment for the drill, and the oven's clean.
Oh, that's hilarious. Oh my God. So Scrub Daddy, the Shark Tank breakout brand that makes cleaning much more fun.
It worked in the oven. Nothing else was working for us. We tried magic erasers. We tried everything in there, and the Scrub Daddy was the only one that actually worked.
Cleaning stone, maybe. Bust Out says a magic eraser will take the walls off the walls.
Yeah. Magic eraser will take paint off the walls. It's known to do that too.
Yeah. Greg says my friend's wife used it on the stove dial, so now they have to guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that's magic.
Oh, that's hilarious. You guys are killing me tonight.
Shabmal, I remember those.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if I've ever cried during the Home Gadget Geeks, but you guys are bringing me to tears.
I like that one, though. We have to guess how hot the oven is now. You know what's perfect for that, Greg? Get the meter. Throw a meter in there. Now you'll know how hot the oven is all the time.
Oh my God! Just a meter that's
inside your oven,
right? It's just permanently in there, like magnetically attached to the side of the.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that is. Greg says his apologies. I'm experimenting with new cocktails over here. You're doing pretty well, Greg. You should join us Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Central. You come back and join us, and then you make sure you use Jim's link to get the meter. Yeah. I don't know if that Busted. I don't think that actually works anymore. I think I took that one down. I love the meter though. That has just been a great one.
I think I convinced TJ to get that too. Like after I praised it, I think he went and bought one. So yeah. The ThermoWorks, any of those though, the thermometers have gotten really good. Yeah.
Like this is an area that space has gotten extremely good. I tell you what's obnoxious right now is these freaking no smoke. The solo stove. Whole thing, like,
oh yeah,
now everybody has a solo stove, and I swear to God, okay, I pimped these for a while because I thought solo stoves were great, and they are, like, they're fantastic. A neighbor of mine got a Duraflame or Duracell or one of those off-brand ones. They work great, but I swear to God, Solo comes up with a new product every week now. They're like, buy this new deflector that we have on there, and they're like, buy this new one that'll heat the Hubble Space Telescope. And you're like, what? It's so it is these solo stoves, these outdoor smokeless stoves. They've gotten out of hand. They're just like
solo.
Yeah.
Stove.
Yeah, and then Tony says he's got the solo stove pizza oven. Yeah, they're making everything. They're like, hey, here's a solo stove car and a solo stove deck, and you're like, okay, settle down, solo stove. They've got like 18 different sizes. They've got one now you can put on your like on the table on your deck so that you can cook just the marshmallows kind of thing.
Well, they have the indoor one now too. Bring fire indoors. Yeah.
It's Greg says I wish I could get the ThermoWorks multi-probe sensor to get my smoker to work with my Home Assistant. I did the meter. I got connected through the Home Assistant, and and I can get
it's
the
Bluetooth.
Yeah. Well, and I think I have it. I want the main connection for the meter to be through through a Home Assistant, and then through that it'll broadcast it out to my phones or my tablets or whatever. Whenever we're doing that. So yeah, it's just like Solo's gotten so many. I do not know. And God, do not sign up for their text messages. Don't do it. You will get, I literally get a text message from them every day of some kind of deal from them.
Yeah. My Ember Cup emails me pretty much every day.
Yeah. No, I haven't gotten a lot from Ember.
Oh, I have been
really
a lot. Yeah. Okay. Ember. It's like every morning I wake up to a new Ember email. You know, that and SwitchBot. SwitchBot would text me, email me, call me, you know, like everything they can do to get a hold of me. It gets annoying.
Yeah, I've signed up. There's a couple whiskey sites or a couple liquor, stores, online liquor stores that I signed up for their 10% coupon or whatever, and I shouldn't have. And now I'm like, we've got this on sale. We got that on sale. We got this on sale every day. And so, Greg, I don't know. My goal wasn't to sell you on the Solo stove. I'm just saying, do not sign up for their.
Listen, email. I have a link open now too for a Solo stove. The first time I really thought about it.
Do not sign up do not give them their phone number. They will absolutely. I get a deal a day, and they're all the same. Eventually, right? Just know you shouldn't ever pay full price for any of those kinds of things. There's always going to be some kind of deal going on, but every Black Friday they're putting together deals on, buy this and buy that, and you get that, and you get a cover for it, and you get these kinds of things. But it's literally every single day I get a Solo stove message. I've got a couple sites, a couple liquor stores that I've signed up for, online ones. And I get a deal of the day from them. And you're like, guys, I should just stop them because I don't, after a while you stop paying attention to them and whether they're good or not.
I have to look into one.
Brian says they're great stoves. They are really well built. I mean, they're kind of the original. I think there's one out there called Brio too, built here in the US. It's pretty good. Solo is the original. They do nice. They got great stuff. I hear good things about them. And so if you're looking for kind of a medium use, they're a little pricey, for what you're getting. But they seem seemingly, I never bought one. I built my own one in the backyard, but
pizza oven.
They got pizza ovens and nuclear reactors, and they're like, I think they have solo powered cars now. I
live by a nuclear power plant. So I'm good with that.
You're okay with that?
It's just down the street.
We have one. What's crazy here in Nebraska, you wouldn't think like we'd be into that at all, but we have one north of us, not very far, maybe 20 miles, and then I've got one 50 miles south, or not even that, 40 miles south.
Yeah.
So there's a couple here on the Missouri that. Justin says, in all seriousness, my meter is great. Yeah, it is a great product. I like it. Yeah, first generation Kickstarter block. Still use it. And I bought the regular one. Greg says there's some really cool videos on YouTube for DIY smokeless fire pits. And Greg, I followed some of those, built my own. We got a great fire pit in the back that I built with a metal ring and some stone. That works out really, really well. We have no complaints. So I have thought about, though, picking up some kind of smokeless, smaller, I have a 36-inch fire pit. Takes a lot of wood, to get, and it gets warm, gets hot. But I've thought about getting a small smokeless, those are 20 inches or 22 maybe, because size matters. And I thought about that just for the patio when I just want to do a quick fire, go out and enjoy a cocktail on maybe a 40 or 50 degree night. And it's not too bad.
Yeah.
Greg says father-in-law has them. Can't get them to work, but that's not too surprising. Well, you got to get them hot too. So anyways, guys, if you joined us live, thanks for coming out. Always good. Tonight was super fun. We'll be back next week. I've got Jeff C coming. He actually is coming from, he is a listener to Ask the Podcast Coach. And we're going to have him on. He's kind of a tech guy. And so we're going to have him on next week. Working on Aaron Lawrence to get her back. And apparently, I've had TJ, but maybe that other guy from HomeTech.fm.
We forget his
Seth.
name sometimes. Yeah,
what's his name? Oh, Seth.
Yeah,
that's right. Maybe we can get Seth on here as well. Get his side. Would he talk some smack about you and TJ if he was on? Is he?
Oh, Seth will just say how much he loves us. You know?
Oh, okay. All right.
He will only talk us up. He's that good.
Well, what fun is that? So I'm trying to create some smack talk between the three of you. So that is.
That's not good at smack talk. TJ gives me a run for my money.
All right. All right. Well, I won't expect much from Seth then when he reaches out to me. Guys, thanks for coming out. Have a great weekend. The weather's improving here in the Midwest, at least here in the United States. Gavin, I'm sending some good weather your way. I think it's going to get warm. And hang out for me 1 second. We will see you guys next Thursday. Thanks for coming out, everybody. Take care.